1,000 better
1,000
stories.
better stories.
1,000 better stories.
1,000 better stories.
You're listening to 1,000 Better Stories, the Scottish Communities Climate Action Network's podcast sharing stories of community-led climate action in Scotland to help us all imagine the better and fairer future and transform what we think is possible. Welcome to our Everyday Changemakers series. We blethers with everyday people taking climate action in their communities. Hi, it's Kaska, your story weaver. Apologies for the nasal quality of my voice today, but I'm just recovering from a cold. Today we continue our conversations with everyday changemakers behind community gardening groups in Dundee, which I visited during the open day in June this year. In the previous episode I spoke to Catherine from Bonnie Dundee at the Art Science Garden in a car park area sandwiched between Dundee Science Centre and Contemporary Arts Centre buildings. Next I cycled away from the Tay, heading north towards the hump of the Dundee Law. I passed through a few busy streets, followed by the quiet of the business area among the towering historic jute mill buildings, and finally pushing my bike up some steps on a short, steep path away from the heavy traffic of Lochee Road. So I arrived at the calm green south edge of Daddob Park at the foot of the Law, out of breath and super thirsty, and so I welcomed the offering of a juice from the Uppertunity's Growing Spaces group. They were busy setting up a refreshment and activity stall at the Daddob's Castle's door and pottering round in the formal garden in front of it. Uppertunity is just one of a family of charities, social enterprises and community groups calling Daddob Castle their magical home under the umbrella of The Circle, a Dundee-based business which aims to use its profits to fund positive social change. It seems that the place is truly living up to its People's Castle nickname these days. Once I caught my breath and the group finished posing for the community garden open day publicity photos, Rowan bravely volunteered to chat with me, and we headed to a bench at the far end of the garden with a full view of the castle's white fairy tale facade.
Fair enough, it's too hot for me. I'm Rowan. I work for Uppertunity in the castle behind us, and my role is it's written down as project worker, which basically means that I'm given some element of what we do here and then I have to try and work with it. So I was given the garden and a gardening group at the start about a year ago, and now I think we have about 3, 4 and then like one permanent volunteer, so it's going quite well. So we're based at Daddob Castle in Daddob Park. It's just at the bottom of the park, so everything kind of sort of runs down towards us. And we have like a large square Victorian garden. The castle's had a lot of history. The castle that's there now isn't actually the original castle anyway, so it's pretty much all Victorian, or some sort of mix of it. There's a lot of good space to use, but there's a lot to improve and a lot to maintain and fix as well.
Can you describe your favourite part of the garden or part of the place?
It's probably not the most interesting place for everybody else, but I really like, there's a lawn just behind us over there that grows like loads and loads of really long wild grass, and at the minute we're just cutting paths into the grass so that you can walk through it and sort of sit in the grass and see the insects move around you and then see the grass move as well. And so there, because I love the movement, I like being able to see the wind kind of going through everything and turning everything around. But I think I don't know, I think anywhere here is really nice, honestly. I feel very at home here, and there's a lot of my friends work here, so there at that lawn or here and anywhere.
Great. Well, good. That means that you're in the right place for
Yeah.
yourself. How did you get involved in doing what you do just now?
I think it probably makes sense to describe the charity first, because then it makes it a bit easier to describe why I'm here. Uppertunity work with neuro and physio diverse individuals, like from 16 up, and the aim is to give sort of like quality of life assurance, and also to create a more sustainable social environment for a lot of people. A lot of people like myself who really struggle not being around people that are like me. I'm autistic, so it helps to be able to be around a lot of people who are like me and who have the same diagnosis, or who are seen the same way by a lot of people. So we have a lot of similar life experiences. So I met Daniela, who runs the charity, about 3 years ago, and things weren't great at the time, I guess. I was kind of coming off of being homeless, and I didn't have any money, and she paid me £300 to paint the wall of a cafe, which was great. And then she let me volunteer, and then that kind of helped me get this routine going, to a point where I don't, feel a threat of being in the position that I was anymore. And then she started paying me money to learn how to make a garden. So yeah, I think that about kind of winds it round.
Amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
You seem to be in such a happy place right now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you would have seen something very different a few years ago, that's for sure.
So when I say community garden, what comes first into your mind?
The people who are going to be in it, I think. But also then I think like close second, if not competing with first, is like everything that lives here. Obviously we live here as humans and we occupy this space, but there's hundreds of thousands more animals and insects here right now, above our heads even, that have been here way before us. So I think for me the task of the garden is firstly trying to learn about rewilding, and trying to learn how to make the garden self-sustainable rather than it having to depend on human input as much. And then the second, competing first objective is to make it accessible, because as far as I understand there aren't any fully accessible gardens in Dundee. I think maybe Barn Hill Rock Garden is accessible. It really depends. You got to ask people who need the accessibility. And what I see is that a lot of people who come here who require the accessibility to be able to go around the garden don't have it still. So they kind of have to stick to roads and the paths, and it would just be nice if people could actually be out inside this really nice space. So yeah, making it accessible and also making it self-sustaining. I think those are my two objectives.
Not small ambition.
No.
Why not? Why not? What's the biggest thing you've learnt since getting involved in the garden itself?
About gardening or about people?
Both, maybe?
When you get the time, you're out here a lot, like for hours and hours on end, and you may be working on things that take a long time to bring together to full fruition. We've got quite a few projects on the go all at once at the minute, because we need to bounce around them, and that's because a lot of people obviously have different capabilities. We want everybody to be able to join in and take part in it and make a piece of it happen. Often, no matter who you're spending time with, you're always sharing stories, or you're sort of learning more about yourself through talking to people. And I didn't maybe expect people to be as broad and as sort of full of stories as they are, which maybe sounds a bit strange, but it's certainly a lot more than I expected. I have to take in a lot of information in a day, but it is certainly surprising, and it kind of I don't know, it feels very normalising, I suppose. Yeah.
And did you learn anything about gardening as well?
Yeah, oh god, yeah. Absolutely. I think a lot of what we've been learning about at the minute is how to prepare the space. Like, if you look around now, it's obviously quite ramshackled, but there are things with purpose happening. A lot of what we're doing is trying to just prepare the ground. When we got here, the whole place was kind of arid. I think if we look around now, we can see bees and birds, and well, we can hear birds, that's for sure. But we can see a lot of other things as well if we start looking around, and none of that was here. Like, there wasn't any bees, there wasn't any like hoverflies or little smaller insects or anything, and so if there were any plants here, they were really sparse and they were only flowering, like if maybe one or two heads or something, and learning about how important it is to sort of be able to hold groundwater, and just how impenetrable ground can be without you even realising. You can look at it and think it's like a verdant space, but then you dig down about an inch and it's bone dry. So yeah, learning how to maintain the ground and how to like actually bring some life into it, even just with little flowers or just greener grass. It's a good place to start because it's important.
Yeah, it sounds like you're well on your way. So what inspires you? Or maybe who inspires you?
Everybody here, I think. It's quite hard not to walk into that left-hand wing of the building and not feel inspired, because as strange as a life I've had, there's people in that room who've had a much stranger life than me, for no reason, other than the people see them as being just a bit too different. There's a lot of people in that room that I don't know, I'll sit down and I'll have a conversation with them, and then I think about sort of my life and theirs, and I tend to think about the harder things that have happened to me that realistically will have happened to them as well, and just how much easier it's been relatively for me to deal with those knocks than it has for a lot of people who come in that room. And so it's nice to just sit among people who actually know how you feel, but also people that you legitimately feel like you could actually help have a slightly better day and a bit of a better week. And yeah, I'm always just impressed, really, by just people coming in and just living their life, because there's a lot of opposition, and I think a lot of people don't see the opposition because they don't spend time around the people that I spend time around, and they don't spend time around neuro or physio diverse people at all. Most people, well, they maybe do, but they don't know it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to learn from people. So it's yeah.
People.
Always people.
Always people. I always ask at the end of the interview to sort of take a minute to imagine, let's say, this space that you've been talking about and your community of people here that you've created 10 years from now, and sort of imagine the best possible future for it.
Yeah.
And if you could share a single memory from that future with our listeners.
Yeah. I think it comes back to accessibility. The main thing that I would like to be able to see is someone maybe in a chair or a walker go from that gate to that gate. Because I know from looking after my grandparents, people in chairs and walkers don't get to experience a lot of this, which is silly, because we have the capability to be able to make it so why isn't it? So my future memory, I'd like to be able to see somebody over there who wants to meet someone who's over this other side, and I'd like to be able to see them meet in the middle. That would be what I'd like to see.
Great vision. So, is there anything that you'd like to add?
We need help. I'm primarily one person. It's me and Ed really on the job. I mean, if we're doing the work he might need to be more capable for physically, we definitely need help with that, because we're getting pretty tired. But also, it's not like we're looking for a specific kind of person to come down. We just want someone who's committed and wants to make some element of change, but can just get along with with the swing of things, I suppose, because we change minute to minute a lot of the time. But we need help. So if anybody wants to come down.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me.
That's okay. Thank you for coming and talking to us and seeing the garden as well.
After our chat, Rowan rejoined others at the stall while I looked for the best route to my next stop at the Victoria Community Garden. Tune in next Monday for my chat with their garden coordinator Gisela. In the meantime, you can find links to more information on the Uppertunity and their growing group, as well as their other fab projects, Serendipity's catering and Reboutique upcycling shop, in the resource section of the show notes. They have lots of videos telling stories behind the projects and people involved. I also included some other resources and a link to an audio tour we're putting together with Dundee Community Garden Network. Catch you next week. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and share it with others. It'll really help us reach a wider audience. If something exciting is happening in your own community, be sure to let us know so that we can help you tell your own story. You can drop our story weavers a line at stories@scan.scot. It's scan, SCCAN, .scot, SCOT. We also offer training and mini-grant support to community storytellers. To keep up to date with our offerings and everything Scan, check out our website at scan.scot or find us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram, or simply sign up to the newsletter.